Hey everybody, so as we keep moving along here through season previews, it's time now to do the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay lost in the conference final last year to the Washington Capitals, almost made it to the Stanley Cup. They were one of the absolute best teams in the league last year, and I expect them to be again this season. They have what I think is probably the most complete lineup in the entire NHL. So, let's look at their lineup. This is according to Roster Resource. Here's what Tampa Bay's looking like heading into this season. Top line, JT Miller, Steven Stamkos, and Nikita Kucherov. It doesn't get any better than that. Ridiculously good top line in Tampa. Second line, Andre Palat, Braden Point, and Tyler Johnson. This team, the talent is just up and down the lineup with this team. Third line, Yanni Gourde, Anthony Cirelli, and Alex Killorn. Fourth line, Corey Conacher, Cedric Paquette, and Andy Andreoff. Andreoff coming in from LA in a trade, so he has a new home in Tampa Bay. We'll see if he makes the team. Conacher, I don't think, is a lock to be an everyday player either, but someone is going to have to step up and take their spot. Right now, it looks like those two are the shoo-ins for the fourth line wings. Andreoff being a JT Brown replacement and a pretty tough guy. Conacher being a smaller player but very gritty and a good guy to have on your fourth line. On the back end, you have Victor Hedman and Dan Girardi as your top pair, Ryan McDonough and Anton Strawman. Second pair, and Braden Coburn and Mikhail Sergachev as your bottom pair. One of the best defense cores in the entire league. I would say Nashville is a little bit better than them. Maybe Winnipeg, but Tampa's got to be top three as far as 1 through 6 defense cores. Andre Vasilevsky in net. He really had an incredible season last year, and I certainly expect him to follow that up with another great year this year. And Louis Domingue is the backup. Extra players, we have Adam Ernie as the extra forward, and he certainly has a chance to take a spot either from Andreoff or Conacher in this lineup. And then they have 2 extra defensemen, Slater Cuckoo and Jake Dotchin. Both probably aren't going to crack the everyday lineup with this top 6, but when injuries take place, they're 8 deep on defense, and either of those guys can slot into a spot in this defense and be a very solid extra defenseman. So overall, Tampa's lineup is just unreal. I think they should be the favorite going into this season. I think just talent up and down the lineup, and everyone is just playing a role that fits together really, really well. Their top 6 can put up a ton of points. They have really good grit in their bottom 6, also with offensive ability. Their defense, like I said, is just unreal 1 through 6, and even they're 8 deep on defense. They've got 2 extra guys who can easily slot in and play well. Goaltending, not a problem at all, with Vasilevsky taking most of the games, and then Domingue can easily come in and be a decent enough backup. When you have a starter like Vasilevsky, you don't need a grade A backup, and Domingue can play well enough to keep this team rolling if Vasilevsky needs a rest. Another thing about Tampa Bay, if you want to, I just talked about Toronto in my last one and how they have no toughness whatsoever, like none at all. This is a great example of how to have a tough team in 2018. The days of the enforcers who fight 20 times a year are over, but this team, they have great team toughness. This is how, in the modern game, with the way things are now, you can still put a tough team on the ice, and you have players who are willing to stand up for each other and themselves, and still play a physical, hard game. We saw this a lot in the playoffs. Tampa was very physical in the playoffs last year, and look at JT Miller can play tough if he needs to. He's willing to drop the gloves a couple times a year. Braden Point even had a few fights last year, and he's a pretty tough kid who is obviously better known as being a really skilled player, but he can play tough when he needs to be. Yanni Gourde, Anthony Cirelli, both can drop the gloves a few times. Conacher is small but very gritty. Paquette is one of their toughest players and very fitting on a fourth line. And Andy Andreoff is, coming over from LA is a well-known fighter. Like, he fights regularly. So that's just their forward group. On the back end, I mean, Coburn stands out as their tough guy on the back end. But, this up and down the lineup, every line has tough players on this team, while also being one of the most skilled and, offensively lethal teams in the entire league. So if you want to look at how to put a tough team on the ice in the modern NHL in 2018, this is how you do it. You don't have fourth line enforcers anymore. You don't have plugs who can't play. You have really tough players throughout your lineup who also are strong offensive guys, and guys who play both physically and with a lot of skill as well. And this, I think, as far as when you look at the entire NHL, this is, I think, as good an example as you can get. Toughness on the fourth line, toughness on really all lines, skill players, star players who are also willing to stand up for themselves. Case in point, JT Miller and Braden Point. I mean, this is how you put a tough team on the ice in 2018. So, really, really strong lineup up and down. Even their extra players are strong and could easily slot into this lineup when they need to, whether that's injury or just they take a roster spot, they take someone else's job. They can easily do that. Very, very strong team here. Very, very good lineup. I think this is the most complete team in the entire league. They're my favorite, Stanley Cup favorite going into this season. There are a few really, really good teams in this league, but I think Tampa is leading the way. I expect big, big things from them this year. If I were to pick a Stanley Cup champion right now, I would pick Tampa Bay. So they came close last year, lost to Washington in the conference final. I think this might be the year. I can't say enough good things about how good this lineup is and how deep this team is as well. When injuries start to happen, they have guys they can call up. They have guys that can fill in and play decent minutes. Obviously, injuries would be a problem if they start to pile up in your high-end players. If Hedman goes out, Stamkos, Kucherov, you start losing guys like that. It doesn't matter how deep you are, how good you are, that's going to lead to problems. But overall, this team is just, on paper at least, they're probably the best in the league. So we'll see how they play. We'll see how things turn out. They had a really good year last year. I expect the same thing this year. I definitely think that they'll be a top team in the league, and they just have to go out and do it. So really, really high on Tampa Bay this year. I think it's going to take a real disaster of a season for them not to play well, not to live up to their expectations, and I don't see a lineup around the league that's any better than what I just showed there in Tampa Bay. So that's what I think. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media, check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description below. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.